Welcome to the weekly digest where we highlight the works of ministers of government as they push the administration's development agenda. Housing Minister Colin Crowell conducted a series of site visits along the east coast of Demerara on Saturday last. The minister's first stop was at La Reconnaissance Plantation, where he disclosed that allottees will be able to access their house lots by the end of February.
We want to, by the end of February, to start showing persons their location. There are 2 blocks. This area was allotted in 7. There are 7 lots when we tendered out. It's about $2.5 billion investments you're seeing here. So you can understand the investment that is happening at the back here. In fact, of that $2.5 billion, we have spent about $800 million in work, and this is assessed work. And so we want by the end of February to start showing 2 of those lots.
Meanwhile, the minister inspected the construction works on the homes for the informal settlers at Annandale North, East Coast Demerara. This is part of a follow-up to His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali's visit to the area, where he announced that interventions would be made to relocate the squatters living along the Sea Defence Reserve.
We have also sorted out the ownership, because when we took over, that's another issue. They didn't have ownership of this area. And so that's why I found the statement alarming. So we have sorted that out. So that is taken care of. Behind me, so that's about 450 lots or so for the residential.
Minister Crowell stated that LBI is being developed to attract private investment and that road interconnectivity is also a priority in this process. The Committee of Supply approved over $71 billion for the Housing and Water Ministry to execute its mandate of providing housing and water access to citizens this year. Of the total, $54 billion was approved for the housing sector, with $50 million allocated for infrastructural works, including construction of roads, bridges, water distribution systems, electrical networks, and land preparation in new and existing housing schemes. Minister Crowell informed the committee that $7.3 billion will go towards the continuation of the highways at Eccles to Diamond, as well as an additional $5.4 billion for the Schoonard to Crane Road. A total of $467.5 million was also approved for the construction of a new housing ministry office in the vicinity of Houston, Greater Georgetown. Upgrades will also be made to water transmission systems in areas such as Port Droin, Virgin Eugen, La Parfait Harmony, Caledonia, and Commons Lodge to ensure residents have access to a reliable and consistent supply of clean water. The budgetary provisions for the Ministry of Public Service were on Monday last approved by the Committee of Supply. Minister of Public Service Sonia Parag said one of the main objectives envisioned in the 2023 budget include the acquiring of an e-governance structure that will simplify and harmonize interagency operations.
We are looking at an e-governance structure throughout the public service. But in the meanwhile, the Ministry of Public Service is actually looking to have a software be installed that will be compatible with that when it comes on board.
Natural Resources Minister Vikram Bharat on Tuesday last, during the consideration of the national budget estimates, explained that data in relation to Guyana's oil and gas operations can be sold and provide financial benefit for the country. Discussions have commenced in relation to the establishment of a repository to house this valuable data in Guyana.
But the disadvantage that we face right now is that our data, our oil and gas data, is not stored in Guyana. And the issue with that is that we can make a lot of revenue by selling on that data, by having that data in country, and we being the sole agent and responsible for it.
The Tourism, Industry and Commerce Ministry will soon commence work on its 2023 programs as $6.53 billion was approved in the Committee of Supply of the National Assembly. In responding to questions by the opposition, Minister Onij Walron noted that last year 1,429 persons benefited from small business grants.
Mr. Chairman, the target's been 1,000 grants for the year of 2023. This way surpasses the target of the 560 grants in 5 years under the previous administration. So I do believe, Mr. Speaker, that 1,000 grants for 1 year is very significant. It's not insignificant.
Meanwhile, a lab will be constructed for the Guyana National Bureau of Standards at a cost of $1.5 billion, which will allow for the provision of adequate services as well as other capital works for the agency to help build its capacity. The Labour Ministry, through the Board of Industrial Training, BIT, will continue in its efforts to build a skilled workforce across the country by expending close to $139 million to construct and rehabilitate several training centres. The ministry plans on constructing an office and training centres at New Amsterdam and Kriveton. Some $10 million will also be injected to complete rehabilitation works at the Bartical Learning Resource Centre for the training of BIT students. This initiative aligns with the government's policy of delivering technical and vocational training programs with a view of addressing the demand for skills in various sectors. Minister Hamilton said currently BIT offers many skills training programs that are accessible to citizens countrywide. He said these programs were mostly centered on the coastline and its environs and were not available to persons elsewhere. This, he noted, changed when the PPPC administration assumed office in August 2020 to ensure the programs are more inclusive and accessible to all citizens. Amerindian and hinterland communities are set to benefit from numerous economic empowerment programs as the Committee of Supply approved $2.7 billion earmarked in Budget 2023 for the Amerindian Development Fund, ADF.
For enterprises to do with fishing, 13 million, cattle rearing and livestock, 18 million, meat center, 15 million, guest houses related to tourism, 56.5 million, inclusive of 10 million to address lakefront development, solar food processing project, 20 million, agro-processing, shade houses, which will support our agricultural drive and contribute to our country's food security and the indigenous community more improved food secured, 114 million.
A number of communities will receive ATVs, boats, and outboard engines and other vehicles to improve access. Minister Sukai also told the committee that a sum of $80 million has been budgeted to carry out consultations with communities on the revision of the Amerindian Act of 2009. In keeping with the Education Ministry's vision of incorporating technology to transform the education sector, 25 smart classrooms are expected to be established or enhanced at secondary schools across the country in 2023. The implementation of smart classrooms continues to play a pivotal role to create equity and access to education for all students. Education Minister Priya Manikchan, while responding to questions posed by the opposition on Tuesday last, underscored, quote, there will be 25 secondary schools benefiting from some aspect of smart classrooms, end quote. The ministry's efforts to reduce the access gap between students on the coast and the hinterland so that a high-quality education could be enjoyed would be aided by the establishment of these smart classrooms. A total of $158.2 billion was passed for the Ministry of Public Works in the areas of policy development and administration, public works, and transport. This is to facilitate the continued construction of roads and bridges for the further development of the economy. Contracts were signed which will see the rehabilitation of over 1,000 roads as the government presses the accelerator on the country's infrastructural development. Further, Minister of Public Works Bishop Juan Edgel shared this year's budget allocates sums for the rehabilitation and beautification of the Lamaha corridor to create a safe space for residents. 17 long-serving employees of the Guyana Civil Aviation Authority were on Friday awarded as the agency commemorated 56 years as a member of the International Civil Aviation Organization. Minister within the Ministry of Public Works, Deodat Indar, lauded the work of the GCAA and its employees for their continued valuable contributions to Guyana's economy.
But we are at a peak where our compliance is good, where the systems were good. You have a good regulation that backs the authority to enforce in the sector. It took a lot to get here. and to maintain and develop it further.
At its last ICAO audit, Guyana received a 77% rating, well above the global average, which is 67%. This brings us to the end of this edition of Weekly Digest. For these and other government-related stories, do log on to our website, dpi.gov.gy, and our social media platforms as well. Goodbye.